Uh-oh. Ow. Welcome back to the Mentor Roulette grind, and this time we're just playing barrier healers, hoping to get some duties where we can really show off how to deal with various situations. On the plus side, we didn't get many guild tests. On the minus side, we didn't get that many high level duties either. That said, for duty 1 we went to Tam-Tara Deepcroft hard as Scholar, and this is your regularly scheduled reminder that at level 50 Art of War is a gain on 1, as it does the same damage as Ruin 1, but being instant means you can get more auto attacks in. More important for the duty itself though, it very much seemed like our party may have been new to the duty, but they were also willing to learn. On the first boss, we almost instantly wipe as the zombies are killed by player attacks rather than the spread marker. But we managed to stay on our feet and focus down the boss before it gets any worse. 7 Vuln snacks are a lot though. A little tip for this one as a barrier healer is if you are not certain about your party, then set up a barrier in advance and maybe even consider putting down Sacred Soil or Keracholi during the bit with the zombies, just in case. On the second boss, I tried to be quick to soak the first orb to indicate to the party what to do, and they indeed follow suit and help with keeping the orbs away. On the final boss, everyone of course helped with the ads, so once we got past those Vuln stacks earlier, it was quite a nice run. For duty 2, we went to Dzemael Darkhold as Sage. A pretty funny thing in the initial bit of the dungeon was that it seemed our tank really wanted to solve the first Magitech terminal, but once we did, no one entered the extra room, so it was kind of unnecessary. After the first boss, there were various weird spots where it seemed like the tank was bad at picking up individual mobs. But they explained at the end of the dungeon that their mouse battery ran out, which explains why it was suddenly a problem. Despite this, we did a rather big pull after the first boss with no major issues as our tank used plenty of cooldowns for both of the big pulls. In the terminal room after the second boss, it is worth mentioning that unless you're 2 players standing on a terminal, starting at just the right time, you're pretty much guaranteed to be hit at least once by the AoEs. And stepping out of the terminal resets it, so you just have to take it. And for the final boss, I bring a soft reminder that the tank busters are frontal cleaves, so make sure to not stand too close to the tank during it. For duty 3, we went to Ultima Weapon Extreme as Scholar with Ilana and Agent Monica. As usual, the big thing that really matters in this fight is getting the orb soaks right. As a barrier healer, you can do slightly more than many other jobs. When Ultima Weapon passes around 50% HP, I recommend setting up Sucker. Consider doing it again at around 35 or 30% and 15% or so, to try and aim for everyone having a barrier for every orb wave. Making good use of Lustrate to heal up players between orb explosions can also save the team from unnecessary deaths. In this party though, on the second set of orbs, Agent Monica goes down in the pursuit of stopping the orbs, and on the third set, Ilana seems to take a few as tank to bring us a victory. Still, a quick under 4-minute extreme. For duty 4, we went to Sastasha as Sage, and the rogue knew me. Hello! During the first third of the dungeon, our tank pulls a very large amount, which is manageable, but at the coral, I try to be greedy and resolve the coral while needing to aggressively heal the tank, which means they go down. I even used Swiftcast to try and save them, which meant I didn't have Swiftcast to rest them. Still, we managed to stabilize. After the first boss, our tank went AFK for a bit, but considering that I know that every job can solo Sastasha synced, I just continued. The tank can catch up when they come back. For the rest of the dungeon, things went about as you'd expect. For duty 5, we went to Sastasha again, but as Scholar, and our tank knew me. Hello! Approximately the same pulls as the previous runs, but this time I didn't make weird mistakes and no one went AFK, making for one more quick and easy run. For duty 6, we went to Brayflox Longstop hard as Sage, and our party is quite solid, so we just turbo through the dungeon. An interesting fun fact about this dungeon is that it is generally considered the fastest level 50 dungeon if you for any particular reason need to run a level 50 dungeon either once or repeatedly. That said, I think only the final boss has a mechanic that could really sneak up on you. In the intermissions, a large amount of bombs rain on the arena, and each bomb explodes large enough that you kinda need to hit the bombs out to the edge of the arena. This is probably obvious to most, but let's just say that I have wiped to this boss at least once due to underestimating how large the explosions were. One extra shove for good measure is a good idea. For duty 7, we went to Sohr Khai as Scholar. The second boss actually seems to confuse a lot of players, so how about we talk about that one? First off, as the fight progresses, the side railings will gradually break, revealing a pool of lightning on the edge. Simply put, the damage you will take from dipping your toes into this pool far outweighs almost any other mechanic in the fight. However, the primary way players end up in the pool is that every so often the boss uses Gallop, which puts a telegraph across the entire safe area of the arena, indicating that you have to lean out to the edge to take less damage. Or, as it seems from the telegraph, step out into the lightning pool to avoid it outright. The way you're supposed to handle this mechanic is to lean to the side of the arena, but specifically up against a railing so that you just get smushed into the wall and take very little damage. The boss also uses sudden line AoEs with no telegraph, so in this rather slim arena, the team is kind of incentivized to spread out, although not really, because the line AoE also breaks the guardrail, so better just stay somewhat centered or pointing at the broken parts. Finally, the boss summons clouds that do AoE damage near them that also break the guardrails. Optimally, the clouds go in a corner where the rail is already broken. But this is a dungeon boss. By the time the cloud spawns, the fight is close enough to over that the cloud breaking a large part of the arena is usually irrelevant. Admittedly, this fight isn't very hard, and most of the mistakes you can make won't lead to a wipe anyway. Aside from the weirdness of this fight, the duty went very well. For duty 8, we went to Rathalos Extreme as Sage, with Agent Monica and Seraph. The first attempt had a lot of smaller mistakes, especially in phase 1, but nothing major, right up until this specific moment where some poor planning leads to both me and Seraph getting smacked, which is survivable, into a fire patch. This is not survivable, landing a double kill for Rathalos. After that point, we still managed to knock down Rathalos for the second time, but as we didn't finish it, we still have a long way to the end, and with exactly 1 life left, this can go either way. And right at the end, a much more unfortunate set of circumstances came back to bite us. Throughout phase 2, almost every single stack marker has targeted Agent Monica, and every time, that costs 3 potions. So when the final stack marker appears, they can only heal after the first hit. This is genuinely a possible problem that can crop up with the solo the stack strategy, but it is rare enough that it causes an outright wipe that it is still the recommended strategy. On the second attempt, we hit phase 2, and both our tank and Agent Monica get hit by a cleave pretty much twice in a row, which ends up killing Agent Monica. But after that, we managed to keep it together until the end. Right as Rathalos is about to go down, he manages to make the same setup as in the first attempt and kick the tank into a fire patch. But specifically a tank can survive it, so we promptly turn it around on Rathalos and finish the fight. For duty 9, we went to Ultima Weapon Extreme as Scholar with Ilana, Seraph and Lichar. For the first set of orbs, we actually deal with all 4 with 0 deaths, just to really style on the boss. For the second set, while I try to help with the center orbs, our tanks actually resolve all 3 orbs on their own. And for the third set, my co-healer solos 1 orb, our tanks take at least 1, and a blob of all of the DPS take 2 more, instantly clearing all of the orbs, and we finish up the fight from that point. A shockingly easy fight when everyone focuses on the orbs. Very nicely done. For duty 10, we went to Shiva Extreme as Sage. And let's take this one from start to finish. Shiva opens with Sword, which is resolved correctly by stacking the raid. Right after, the many circle AoEs are dodged by all of the supports, but all of the DPS are hit, including a Black Mage that straight up dies from it. Then, as the Black Mage comes back up, Shiva switches to Staff and the Viper dies as we don't spread fast enough. Right after, the ad phase starts, and as usual, the tank kinda forgets about the sword. Thankfully, myself and the Black Mage from before either deliberately or accidentally stand with the tank, avoiding any deaths. Shortly after, that same tank gets hit by Glacier Bash, which you can sidestep, but again, easily forgotten during the ad phase. That said, we cleanly managed to finish phase 1 with everyone alive again. We enter phase 2 and Shiva starts with some circle AoEs as usual, followed by Staff with more circle AoEs. And looking at how little damage the party took, it seems like most of the raid positioned correctly for it. While not a requirement, it is worth noting that it is a lot easier to tank this fight if the tanks alternate which weapons they tank, so one takes the staff and the other the sword as they build up stacks that makes the opposite do more damage. Up next, we have the so-called Shiva circles, and it seems both tanks and one black mage gets hit, and right after, the floor becomes slippery, which is why you really need to move for the Shiva circles really fast. Thankfully, only one of the tanks gets cubed as a result, and not the one tanking Shiva either to boot. While we save that tank, Shiva switches to bow, which fortunately is phased out of the arena, so only the tank gets hit, even though they could have dodged too. Remember, the bow auto-attacks simply hurt a lot as they auto-crit, but they don't benefit from either of the debuffs from the other weapons. The black mage getting targeted by the knockback is quick to run out of the party, which barely means only they get knocked. We promptly save them from their cube. Shiva finishes up the bow phase and calls in more circle AoEs, and for the tighter cross-pattern circles, she chooses sword this time, which can easily trip up a party as this means instead that the party needs to stack rather than spread. But most of the party comes in for the stack successfully. Just as we're wrapping up the fight, Shiva uses Whiteout, which is a donut you don't always see, but due to limit break, she's not allowed to use the Heavenly Strike follow-up. A pretty solid first try. Well done. For duty 11, we went to Bubble Bath with a Morbol. A soft reminder that since only the Morbol needs to die, fully ignoring the bubbles usually works well, as wasting time attacking the bubbles gives more time for yet more bubbles to arrive, which in a funny twist means that actually interacting with the bubbles can be detrimental. For duty 12, we went to P1N, Erichthonios, as Scholar, and the Gunbreaker knew me. Hello! Usually not that much happens on this fight, but at least some stuff happened this time around. On the hot and cold mechanic, which can be mildly confusing on your first go, you need to get hit by the opposite element 3 times in a row, alternating, and the cubes resolve from the bottom up. As far as I know though, getting hit by the same element twice is survivable. However, what is not survivable, ever, is being hit by the death zones activating between the cube quadrants. So, in the first wave, the Dragoon and Ninja get the element wrong, on the second wave, the Dragoon dies to the crossing, and then, for the third wave, both of the red mages die to the crossing. Just keep in mind that being hit by the wrong element is more survivable than that, so better to take the L and stay put than to try and dodge at the last moment. Despite all those deaths, we get everyone back up before the Shining Cells mechanic, and while another hot and cold mechanic does start, no one else dies for the rest of the fight. And finally for duty 13, we went to Skydeep Cenote as Sage. This run dragged on a bit relative to how long Skydeep Cenote normally is, which of course causes me to start looking at what the team is doing. The really standout player in this case is the Bard. They would start their song sequence with Mage's Ballad. Not really a big mistake necessarily, but then they used Battle Voice alongside Army's Paeon on the second pull, and it wasn't until the boss before they used Radiant Finale for the first time. As they didn't seem super keen on starting a song while packs were being rounded up, they sometimes also straight up skipped Wanderer's Minuet in the sequence. And this is just me highlighting the more obvious stuff, and usually this kind of combo of mistakes usually are accompanied by less obvious mistakes. Of course, there's also the whole perspective that Bard and Dancer together is not exactly the fastest dungeon runner combo, and Dancer's dance partner not quite bringing it hurts a lot too. Now, that said, on the first boss things were looking fine, and then our tank dies to 2 overlapping bubble bombs. We managed to recover from that, but me being second on enmity after the tank is not a good sign. Then on the final boss, when Ringing Blows, the blue circle, overlaps with the half-room cleave punches, our Dancer gets shoved off the arena. And later, for Colossal Impact, the blue circle with spread markers, our Bard gets shoved off. To be fair, the fact players died on both the first and last boss definitely impacted clear speed, but the fact I was second on enmity for considerable amounts of time on all 3 bosses even before deaths occurred is also not a good sign. But we still managed to clear without any wipes, so it isn't too bad. Quite a stacked set of duties in terms of more challenging options. Yet every time we got something really tough, we also got some really solid players. So each of the extremes were generally faster than a normal leveling dungeon in terms of duty length. We're also now 17/29ths of the way through the achievement. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Twitch or Ko-Fi. Links in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, 2 of the same barrier or mitigation buff pretty much never stacks. However, between Sage and Scholar, uniquely, their spell-based barriers also don't stack with each other. Between E-Diag, E-Prog, and Scholar's Galvanize, E-Prog and Galvanize will replace each other regardless of barrier size. But between all 3, E-Diag can only be overridden by a bigger E-Diag, meaning that if you as a Sage want to be sure your barriers stay, you would have to single target barrier each individual. But then again, that's a lot of work just to spite your co-healer, isn't it?